The LA Kings were back on the ice, taking on one of the top teams in the league, and it's a Kings fan feedback edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, and we are on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the past 18 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. It is a Kings Fan Feedback Friday, your chance to sound off, critique, praise, complain, and celebrate our LA Kings. We do this every Friday, off-season, regular season, and postseason. But before we get into your emails, the Kings had a rare Friday game in Winnipeg against the Jets, one of the top teams in the NHL, and we want to recap that game for you, and then we'll get into your emails a bit later on. As for the lineup for the Kings in this one, the Kings would once again go with that 11-7 setup, 11 forward, 7 defensemen. That's been so effective for them. Top line of Andre Kopitar with Adrian Kempe and Alex Turcotte. Second line of Quentin Byfield, Trevor Moore, and Warren Foegele. Third line of Philip Deneau centering Kevin Fiala and Alex Laferriere. Trevor Lewis would center the fourth line, and Tanner Jeannot would be now down on that fourth line with a rotating forward on the other wing. As for the defense, the familiar top pairing of Mikey Anderson and Vladislav Gavrikov, Andreas Englund and Brandt Clark would be the second pairing, with Jacob Moverara and Jordan Spence the third pairing, although in ice time in this game, we'll talk about it later, Moverara and Spence were actually more like the second pairing, and then Kyle Burroughs would be the extra defenseman in the lineup. Darcy Kemper would get the start. We were wondering if it would be Kemper or Riddick with the back-to-back games coming up on Friday in Winnipeg, on Saturday in Calgary. I said it should have been Kemper, and Jim Hiller goes with his number one against the Jets in this one. One lineup note I will mention, though, for the Winnipeg Jets, they did not start their great goaltender, Connor Hellebuck, in this one. The Jets have back-to-back games on Friday and Saturday as well, and their game coming up on Saturday is against a division rival in the Colorado Avalanche. So their head coach, Scott Arniel, decided, I'm going to hold off my number one guy for the division rival, and we'll start Eric Comrie in net against the Kings. So LA may be getting a bit of a break, not having to face probably the best goalie in the NHL right now. But then again, Hellebuck played against the Kings in LA, and he ended up losing in that one anyway. Meanwhile, the Kings did have Los Angeles Fire Department stickers on their helmets and patches on their jersey. Also, very nice gesture to see the Winnipeg Jets wore the stickers on their helmet as well. So certainly nice to see. We knew that the Kings certainly had everybody back in LA on their mind for this game, but to actually, see the sticker, see the patch, a nice touch by the Kings organization to do that. I did also want to mention if you watch the broadcast, Patrick O'Neill, who is the pregame and postgame host for the LA Kings, somebody I know personally, somebody I used to work with at the Fox Sports Radio Network years ago. I did not know this, but found out that he lost his family's home in Malibu in the fires, not where he currently lives, but the house that he kind of grew up in, his father's house, who passed away not long ago. So obviously very sad news. I want to send out our best to Patrick. He posted a video during the pregame show and basically told his story real quick and then asked for people to make donations, which you can do, by the way, at lakings.com/fire relief, lakings.com/fire relief. You want to make a donation to the victims. Kings are also hosting at the Toyota Sports Performance Center, where they practice in El Segundo, starting on Saturday, a fire relief donation drive, and they'll be doing that over the next couple of weeks. So I did want to mention that. As far as this game, going into it, what was the big question for me going into this game? Well, it would be, how would the Kings respond to 6 days off, which they didn't know they were going to have because the game against Calgary on Wednesday was, of course, postponed. And how would they be focused with all these things going on around them back home? As far as the answer to that, well, the answer would be that the Kings absolutely looked focused and ready to go. Didn't look rusty in any way in this game against the Jets. Came out and played very, very well, especially defensively. The Kings would hold Winnipeg to just 4 shots on goal in the opening period. It would be a scoreless opening period in Winnipeg. Kings had their chances. They did get the first power play of the game in that opening period, and the Kings actually did score a goal. Jordan Spence scoring on a shot from some distance, but the Jets challenged it for offsides. Tanner Jeannot unfortunately got into the zone a little bit too early, and that goal was taken off the board. Second period, more of the same from LA defensively, holding the Jets to just 5 shots on goal in the second period, and the Kings would get the first goal of the game, and this one would count. Adrian Kempe putting a shot on net and Alex Turcotte getting a stick on it for a nice deflection to give the Kings a 1-0 lead after 2 periods. Kings did have 2 more power play chances in that second period, but could not convert to extend the lead. In the third period, the Kings, unfortunately, took back-to-back penalties against the number 1 power play in the NHL, and those 2 chances back-to-back, they killed off the first one, couldn't kill off the second one, and Winnipeg would end up tying up the game. And we'd be tied 1-1 after 3 periods, so we go to overtime, and in the overtime, Adrian Kempe would end things on a nice pull and drag move, and then off the post and in. Great shot by Juice, and the Kings pull it out 2-1 in overtime. Kings improved to 24-10-5 on the season, 13-2-2 in their last 17 games. They started the year 0-5 in games that went beyond regulation, but they've now won 2 in a row that have gone to overtime. Kings are now 2-0 against the Jets this season, one of the top teams in the NHL, and they start off this 5-game road trip on a high note with a big win. As for the game stats in this one, again, Kings win it 2-1 in overtime. Shots on goal favored LA 23-19. Winnipeg did kind of come on in the third period to get some shots on goal and make it a little closer. Obviously, they got the goal with the power play. LA 0-for-3 with a man advantage. Winnipeg was 1-for-2. Faceoffs narrowly favored Winnipeg 29-28. Hits favored LA 33-31. And block shots were dead even at 11 apiece. So what was good for LA from a team standpoint? Well, great defense. The Kings held the top goal scoring team in the NHL. No team in the NHL has more goals scored on the season than the Winnipeg Jets. And they couldn't even get a decent number of shots off in the first 2 periods. And, they were able to get a goal, but it was on the power play. Again, they've got a great power play. So 5-on-5, the Kings defense was really strong. And everyone contributed. This was a team defensive effort. It wasn't just the defense. It wasn't just the goaltending, the forwards as well. Great, great team defense from the LA Kings. In this one, they looked focused right from the start. The 6 days off did not seem to affect them at all. It was almost as if they had played 2 days ago. That's how good the Kings looked, as a team. Just really a great, great couple of periods. Third period was a bit more even. Great first 2 periods, though, for the Kings. And in that third period, I would give the Jets a slight edge, but all in all, a great overall team game for the LA Kings, especially defensively. What was not so good for LA from a team standpoint? Well, I guess you would have to say taking those back-to-back penalties in the third period. But honestly, I thought both penalty calls were marginal. An interference call on Mikey Anderson where he delivered a hip check along the boards. And then Alex Ferrier was called for hooking. I won't go so far as to say they were awful calls, but I thought they were pretty marginal. The power play, obviously for the Kings, it's 0-for-3. It's bad. It's showing no signs of getting better. Maybe when Drew Doughty comes back, maybe that helps. But I'm at the point, honestly, where I've almost accepted the fact that the Kings are not going to do anything on the power play in this game. And if they do, great. It's like a bonus. It's something unexpected. It's finding $20 in your pocket of an old coat or something. But I'm a pretty optimistic person. But at this point, honestly, if something happens on the power play, good, great. But I'm not expecting it. It's just been that bad. Didn't want to give a coach's quote in this one. And we normally do the coach's quote from Jim Hiller, obviously. But I thought we'd go with Adrian Kempe on this one, the overtime hero. And thanks to Kings Insider Zach Dooley, kingsinsider.com, for posting this on social media. And here's what Adrian Kempe had to say after scoring that overtime game winner. He said, quote, "I think everybody played for all the people back in LA tonight. I think everybody showed that tonight, and I think that was nice to see." End quote. And look, in the end, it's a hockey game. We all know that. But if this game brought a little happiness and a little joy to any Kings fans who have been affected by these horrible fires in any way, even for a few minutes, awesome. That's great. And it's nice to know that the team cares and they're thinking about everybody back in LA, and that was on their minds, and they wanted to play a good game for the people of Los Angeles, and that was good to see. And they did. They played a really, really good game. My big takeaway from this game, I talked about it with Austin Stanovich during our interview this week. I wanted to see the Kings play more consistently earlier in the year, and that eventually happened. I wanted to see the Kings beat some big-time opponents, and that eventually happened. Now I'm looking to see the Kings be a more consistent team on the road. So we'll see. They've had 2 big road trips this year, obviously to start the season when the renovations are going on the Crypto.com arena, and they went 3-2-2. That's not bad. The next road trip, they went 3-2-2 again. Again, it's not bad. But if we're talking about looking at the Kings as maybe one of the top teams in the NHL, then I think that's kind of the next thing they need to show. Be more consistent with that effort that we were seeing at home on the road. Maybe not the record quite as good, but somewhere decent. So they're on this 5-game road trip. Can they go, 3-2 at least? 2-1-1? That doesn't add up with my math. 3-1-1. Something like that. 4-1. 3-1-1. Something like that. Can they do that on the road? That's kind of the next thing I'm looking to see when we're kind of looking big picture with the LA Kings about them being maybe one of the elite teams in the NHL. So we'll see. Obviously, a great start to the trip. They've got back-to-back games coming up and then a big test on Monday against Edmonton. So we will see how it goes. And by the way, the Kings are now tied with the Oilers in points. Both have 53. The Kings right now hold second place in the Pacific because they've got the tiebreaker because they haven't played as many games as Edmonton and they have more regulation wins than the Oilers. Kings also gained a little bit of ground on the Golden Knights. Both the Oilers and Golden Knights lost on Thursday. So right now the Kings, as we record this, 6 points back of Vegas for first place. And they do have 2 games in hand on the Golden Knights. All right, up next, we're going to get into some of the individuals in this win over the Jets and also start to get into your emails as well. That's next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. The NFL playoffs are almost here. We are counting down as they kick off with a pair of games on Saturday, and you can get in on all the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if you win your $5 bet. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. Not only can you bet on who will win the game, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score the first touchdown, how many points teams will score, and so much more. Both of LA's NFL teams in action in the coming days. Chargers are in Houston to face the Texans on Saturday. Chargers are now 3-point road favorites in this one. Over-under for the game is 41.5. Rams are playing the Minnesota Vikings in a game on Monday that's been moved to Arizona because of the fires. Rams are right now 2.5-point underdogs. Over-under the game, 47.5. Should be some fun football over the next few days. Just visit FanDuel.com and join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, we do have some emails coming up, but first wanted to get into some of the individuals that I wanted to talk about a little bit. Again, the win over the Winnipeg Jets. And, of course, we always start with the goaltender. I thought Darcy Kemper was solid in this one. Not spectacular, but didn't need to be because of the way the Kings played defense in front of him. But when he needed to make a save, he made a save. Turned aside 18 of 19 shots. He's now 11-2-5 on the season, 8-0-2 in his last 10 games. Adrian Kempe, the overtime hero, great game for Juice. Not only the beautiful overtime game winner, but he also gets the primary assist on the Alex Turcotte goal as well. He now has 20 goals on the season in 39 games, and even my limited math skills can tell you he is on pace for his second 40-goal season of his career, getting it done on both ends of the ice, and he is the biggest clutch performer for the LA Kings, their their best finisher, but does it all over the ice. Love his defensive game as well. Adrian Kempe, another great game for the Kings. I did want to mention the Byfield line. Quentin Byfield, now Trevor Moore, and Warren Fogle. And head coach Jim Hiller, you may or may not have noticed, has started to put them up against the other team's top lines. And we're talking some big-time lines. They started against Tampa Bay with Nikita Kucherov, Braden Point, and Jake Gunsel, one of the best top lines in the NHL. And they did a great job against that line, held them without a goal. Gunsel and Point had an assist. Kucherov went without a point, and that's a guy who's an MVP caliber player. And then against Winnipeg, against their top line of Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, and Gabe Vilardi, as was pointed out by friend of the show, Russell Morgan from Hockey Royalty, they held that line 5-on-5 to one shot on goal. And we're talking about Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele are two of the top goal scorers in the league, other than maybe Nathan McKinnon and Mikko Rantanen in Colorado. They're probably one of the top duos in the league. You've got Kucherov and Braden Point, but regardless, interesting that Jim Hiller is trying to use Quentin Byfield as almost like a shutdown forward. So we'll see how that goes. I guess the ultimate test would be against Edmonton and Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, and we'll see how that goes. But great job by the Byfield line of playing some great defense. And I thought Quentin Byfield was really good in this game, had a ton of energy. No points, but I thought his presence was felt both offensively and defensively. Alex Laferriere, I thought, was flying all over the ice in this game. Again, didn't have any points, but had a couple of nice chances. I know he's kind of cooled off a little bit, but you wouldn't know it by the way he played in this game. And he had a pass to Brant Clark that sprung Clark for a break-in all alone. Unfortunately, Brant couldn't finish on it, but he took a big hit into the boards to make that pass. And that took a lot of guts. And he bounced back up and he was okay. But again, he talk about take a hit to make a play. Alex Laferriere absolutely sacrificed his body on that one to give the Kings a great scoring chance. Unfortunately, Brant couldn't close it out. That probably made that hurt a little bit more. But that was a great play. Phillip Danault. I thought Phillip Danault had a really nice game. No points, but 4 shots on goal and had a couple of really good scoring chances. I just thought, again, he was noticeable in a positive way for the Kings. Kevin Fiala, good Kevin, bad Kevin. I mean, no points, but I thought he was flying around the ice. He didn't look great on the power play. And he's a guy who obviously is getting 4 minutes on the power play. He's playing on both the power play units. So when you're giving a guy that kind of ice time, you expect him to be more of a positive. I thought he was really frustrated in this one. It just, a lot of his passes and shots just weren't connecting. But you know what? He's trying to make something happen on a power play that absolutely stinks. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I know that there were some mistakes in this game against Winnipeg. It didn't lead to any, shorthanded chances or anything. But, sometimes Kevin does press. Sometimes he tries to make things happen. His heart's in the right place. But in the end, he's trying to do something on this power play, taking some chances. And again, I'm okay with it because the power play isn't doing anything anyway. So why not let him try and do his thing? It didn't work out against the Jets and it was noticeable. But in the end, I mean, he's out there for a reason, right? He's keeping him on both power play units because clearly he has some offensive skills that Jim Hiller feels could help a bad power play. So it wasn't a great game for Kevin Fiala on the special teams. But again, at least he's trying to make something happen. I did want to mention Jordan Spence and Jacob Moverar. I thought they played a very solid game. Now, come minutes-wise, they were the second unit in this game against the Jets. They both played over 19 minutes with Joel Edmondson out of the lineup. They were they got an expanded role defensively. I thought they handled it really well. Moverar even got some penalty kill time. He had an assist, and Jordan Spence did have a goal. Unfortunately, got wiped away because of the offsides because Tanner Jeannot's skate was this far over the blue line. But I thought a real good game, a noticeable game for Jordan Spence and Jacob Moverar. Some game leaders real quick. Adrian Kempe was the only Kings player that had a multi-point night with a goal and assist. Kempe and Andrei Kopitar were both a +2. Byfield, Danault, and Fiala all had 4 shots on goal, tied for the team lead. Tanner Jeannot had 7 hits in the game, by far the most of any Kings player. Vladislav Gavrikov led the Kings with in time on ice with 25 minutes and 54 seconds. And Andrei Kopitar, by far the Kings' best faceoff man, winning 13 faceoffs and losing 7. Time for our 3 stars of the game. And my number 3 star is Quentin Byfield. Again, thought he was just a great player all around, defensively, offensively, making things happen, but really was noticeable defensively. Alex Turcotte, who had the first goal of the game, continues to be a player that makes things happen, is just a positive force out there on that number 1 line. But the number 1 star of this game is pretty obvious. It's Adrian Kempe with his assist and his overtime game-winning goal, leading the LA Kings with 20 goals on the season. Those are our 3 stars of the game in the win against the Winnipeg Jets. All right, we are going to get to your emails next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Hey, those of us that live in Southern California, very lucky. We live in a place where we can see so many live events, sports, theater events, concerts, comedy shows. We've got it all here in Southern California. And if you want to check out those things and you want to get tickets, then you need to do what I do, and that is use Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets to live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff. It only shows you incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The all-in pricing shows the total up front, so you've got no hidden fees at checkout. And if you can get a lower price anywhere, then Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. That's their Game Time guarantee. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL, and you will get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account, and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, let's get to your emails. Didn't have a lot this week, but we did have several people wanting to check in and give their thoughts on what's going on with the fires here in Los Angeles. Wilson in Quebec said, hope all is well. Watching the devastating events from in LA from Quebec City, and thoughts and prayers to all that are affected by this disaster. I was very proud to hear that the CL-215 Canadian water bombers left Quebec City on January 8th, heading towards you guys to help with this fire. We can discuss how the Kings are surprising and stunning everyone next time around. Be safe and God bless. Wilson in Quebec City. Also, Andy from Guelph in Ontario said, been a while since I've written in. First, I hope that you and your wife and others are safe. Canada has also experienced wildfires and the devastating impacts, sending you guys positivity and hope for it to be resolved soon. I'll write another time to talk Kings. I'm sure you're pleased with their solid play. Yes, indeed. This comes from Johnson in Hawaii. He says, just checking in to wish you and everyone in LA all the best. We had a horrific fire in Maui, and seeing all the fire damage and devastation in LA has brought back some hard memories. We are still putting the pieces back together, and I know LA will do the same. Wishing all Kings fans in Southern California and everywhere else all the best. Go Kings, go. And Ed and Brea checked in to say, just wanted to say my thoughts and prayers go out to those affected by the devastating fires. Just tough for people to lose their homes and so much more. By the way, Ed also guaranteed that the Kings would lose to the Winnipeg Jets. And I say to you, Ed, keep guaranteeing the Kings are going to lose, please, because it's working out. Ed also guaranteed the Chargers were going to win their playoff game, which I think might be bad news for my wife as a diehard Chargers fan, because Ed's guarantees are not exactly hitting. And look, Ed is a Kings and Chargers fan. My question is, and maybe I don't even want to know, why is Ed so pessimistic about the Kings, but optimistic about the Chargers? The Kings have won 2 Stanley Cups. The Chargers have never won anything. Doesn't make any sense to me, but it is what it is. We did have a couple of emails about hockey. Scott from Buena Park checks in, says, I always love your show and look forward to seeing it on YouTube during the week. Wanted to talk about Jim Hiller's coaching style and a potential trade. Hiller seems to adjust faster to what he sees during games than most coaches do, making line adjustments throughout the game. At first, I didn't care for his style, as I'm used to more of a set line and trying to build chemistry with your line. But as the season has gone on, I have started to enjoy Hiller's coaching style more and more. Instead of line chemistry, we have more team chemistry as a whole. Just plug and play and who's doing well with each other. For this year's Kings team, I'm starting to see the forwards more as a large group of skaters versus the set lines we typically see. It's refreshing that a coach can make me rethink the game from a fan standpoint after all these years of watching the Kings. As for a trade, a nice addition to our forward group could be Kyle Palmieri from the New York Islanders for a third-round pick plus Samuel Fagemo. New York would retain 50% of Palmieri's salary. And that was Scott in Buena Park. Great email, Scott. I agree. I have really come to enjoy Jim Hiller's coaching style as well. He's got an attention to detail. He's not afraid to try different things. Can be very unconventional at times, but also in a good way. And I thought we saw that a little bit against the Jets, as far as the Kings kind of being more of a whole rather than different parts. Joel Edmondson goes out, a top 4 defenseman, and you would never have known it against, again, a team that scores more goals in the NHL than any other team. The defense looked just as effective. As for Kyle Palmieri, I have actually heard other people mention him as well. I think that could be a fit for the Kings. He's a veteran guy. He's 33. He's played almost 70 career playoff games. He's a right-handed shot with the Kings need, and he can help out on the power play. He had 12 power play goals for the Islanders last season. That would have led the Kings in power play goals a year ago. So he's going to be an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. He's making $5 million a year. I think that's a legit name to keep in mind, Kyle Palmieri. Our final email comes from Gary in Northridge. He says, just watched the Thursday episode and you talked about the Kings-Jets trade for Pierre-Luc Dubois. I agree in the end it was a bad trade, but it worked out about as well as it could have. But who ultimately is to blame for it not working? You talked about him playing well in Washington. Why? What has changed? His ice time, his role there? What are they doing that we didn't? Just curious. I'm glad he's gone. I just never cared at all for how he carried himself, or even when he talked to the media seemed very fake. That was Gary in Northridge. I think there's blame to go around in the Pierre-Luc Dubois situation. It seemed like there was a disconnect between Rob Blake and then coach Todd McClellan as far as what Pierre-Luc Dubois' role was going to be. And then as the season went along and PLD wasn't living up to expectations, it was harder and harder to kind of force him into a situation because the Kings were looking to make a playoff run, and Todd McClellan even maybe trying to save his job, which he didn't end up doing. I think there's blame to go around. I think that when you acquire a player like this, you have to have a clear plan of how you're going to use him and make sure he understands that. And there's no miscommunication. There's no disconnect, which I think there may have been. And also, of course, the player has to take some of the responsibility as well. Pierre-Luc Dubois didn't play well. He was getting a big contract. Frankly, when you're going to a new place and a new team and new teammates and new coaches and new fans, you need to make a really good impression. He seems to be doing that in Washington by doing everything they ask him. It didn't seem like he was really doing that in LA. So I think that it's a shared blame between the team, the coach, and the player, which is why it did not work out. Hey, I want to thank everyone who took the time to email. This show obviously is not possible without your participation. For you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, coming up on Monday, we will recap the Kings-Flames game from Saturday and preview that night's big Kings-Oilers game. Tuesday, we'll obviously recap the Kings-Oilers. Wednesday, probably have a special guest. Thursday, we'll preview that night's Kings-Canucks game. And then on Friday, we'll have another hybrid show where we recap Kings-Canucks and then also read your emails with another Kings fan feedback show as well. You want to get in on that, send an email. The email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. You can also leave your comments if you're watching on YouTube in the comment section. We appreciate that. And stay interactive with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great weekend. We will talk to you on Monday. And as always, go Kings, go.